Let's merge Mario into Minecraft. I'm your host, OmLedu, and in this episode, we're going to build the Super Mario theme song. This tune is just so nostalgic, I'll let you finish listening before we talk about it more. And the song will just keep looping forever and ever until you decide to turn it off. Perfect for some Mario ambiance. But as always, first we need to talk about repeaters. So repeaters naturally have a 1-tick delay, and then every time you poke it, that delay goes up by 1. So a max delay repeater has a delay of 4, because you poked it 3 times. But a repeater with no extra delay has a delay of 1. This is important because I'm going to write the delay that the repeaters need on the screen. So you need to understand how many times you need to poke it to reach that delay. As for your instrument, I really love how emeralds sound, but that is totally up to you. Even the default instrument sounds great, but we do want our instrument block to be different than the other blocks that we are using, because we're going to build all of the redstone and repeaters first, placing our instrument blocks as markers so that we know where to put the note blocks. I feel like this is just an easier way for you to follow along. The build area is 16 by 25, and you can try to copy the guide if you want, but really it's for my sake so I don't get lost during the tutorial. But you should just be able to follow along with what I'm doing without the guide. But here at the very start, where we're going to have our lever, we're going to dig down 2 in this 3 by 4 area except for one of the corners. Now right here in the middle of these 3 blocks, we're going to place a solid block with a torch on the side. And sorry for the hard cut, but I actually made a mistake the first time I was recording this, and I didn't want to redo all of the repeaters and the note blocks. But start off by placing 3 dust, a repeater on a 2-tick delay, so poke that repeater 1 time, then a comparator on subtraction mode, with a dust going into the side of that comparator and in front of that comparator, and then on top of that block. Now another repeater on a max delay right there, so that you end up with this. Now above this dust, we need a solid block with a lever on it. And we'll talk about how to move this lever anywhere that you want later on, after we finish the tutorial. But in front of this max delay repeater, we need to dig out the top 3 blocks, like so, then place 3 redstone dust, so that repeater is powering that dust. Then we're going to dig out 19 blocks on the row next to that dust. Now you don't actually have to count out 19 blocks, because it will all line up in the end. So if you want to, you can, but if you don't want to, it will be fine. But we need a comparator right here next to that dust under the lever, with a dust on top of that block. Then now every time you see an instrument block, place your instrument block. The numbers at the top of the screen are the repeater delay, and the number at the bottom left is the current repeater that we're on. So the first one is 2 delay, the second one is 3 delay, then a delay of 4, so a max delay repeater. So just remember that a repeater naturally has a 1-tick delay, and then every time you poke it, that delay goes up by 1. So 7 would be a max delay repeater and a repeater that has been poked 2 times. Or 4 would be a repeater that has been poked 3 times. But then we need a solid block, and now we need to place 6 dust in this pattern right here, like so. Now in this hole next to this instrument block, we need to place a repeater on a 2-tick delay, then a comparator diagonally from that repeater, and a dust going into the side of that comparator. And now we're going to continue with the delay between the instrument blocks. So 3, then 3 5s. So the 5s is a max delay repeater, and then a repeater that you do not poke at all. And if I've learned anything from messing with these note block songs, is that the repeater delay doesn't really matter a whole lot. Like, it does control the timing between the notes, but really, I mean, it sounds fine even if the timings are different. Like, the most time-consuming part about making these songs is figuring out what repeater delay I like the best. But what that's shown me is that even if the repeater delay is different from the numbers that you see here, it sounds fine. So you could even play around and change the timings if you want to. But then next to this last instrument block, we need to place a copper bulb, with a comparator looking at that bulb, and another one diagonally from that, but on subtraction mode. Then a repeater with a 2-tick delay, and then 7 dust coming out of that comparator going off in this direction. Then 3 dust from that comparator, we need to place a repeater on a max delay, then an instrument block, then a repeater on a 2 delay, then an instrument block, then so on and so forth. Just be sure to place your instrument blocks between each repeater so that later on when you go to place in your note blocks, you don't get lost or confused. That will just make it a whole lot easier later on. And remember that it's easy to change the instrument just by switching out the block. So if you don't like your instrument that you chose, it's not like a permanent thing. But then we need a copper bulb with a comparator looking at it, another comparator on subtraction mode diagonally from that, a repeater on a 2-tick delay feeding into that comparator, and now we need some more repeaters with the delay at the top of the screen. And let me know down in the comments how you feel about this style. Do you feel that it's easier to do all of the redstone while ignoring the note blocks? Do you like having the numbers at the top and the bottom of the screen? I try to make it as easy to follow along as I possibly can. Since these have a lot of numbers and information, I just feel like this is the easiest way. But then back over here, we need to dig down 1 on those 6 blocks right there, then place dust on top of that block, then going down and looping around, and 1 in the corner. Then a comparator right there, and a repeater on a 2-tick delay. Now on top of this block, we need a redstone dust, and then the following repeater delay. And let me know what you think about the pacing of this video. I tried to slow things down much more than I normally do. But after this 2-tick repeater, we need a comparator on subtraction mode, and then a 1-tick repeater. So don't poke that repeater at all. And then connect the dust from that repeater to the dust line that we placed earlier. Now next to this last instrument block, we need another copper bulb, then a comparator coming off of both sides of this copper bulb, but that one needs to be on subtraction mode. Now we need a repeater going into the side of that subtraction mode comparator on a 2-tick delay. Then 3 dust right there. And now turn around and place 2 max delay repeaters right here, going into a solid block, then a redstone dust, then another solid block. Then we need an instrument block to the left of this dust, and then the following repeater delay. So poke the first one 1 time, the second one 2 times, and then this last one poke 3 times so it's on a max delay. And now we're going to turn to the left after that max delay repeater. One nice thing that might help you stay organized is to either take screenshots or write down the numbers at the top of the screen. But next to this last 2-tick delay repeater, we need a comparator that is looking at a copper bulb, then another comparator in front of that repeater on subtraction mode, going into a solid block, then 2 pieces of dust, 1 right there and 1 right there. Now turn around, and this is the final row of instrument block and repeaters. Now the very last one that has a delay of 8 is going to be slightly special. We need a repeater next to every single instrument block so that the note blocks don't trigger anything. So we need a max delay repeater right there, then a 2-tick delay, then 2 1-tick delays next to those. And then fill in 3 dust in between these repeaters like so. So those repeaters will be next to instrument blocks. Now over here, if you didn't measure out your trench that you dug at the very beginning, this is where that trench will end. But then right here, next to these double repeaters, we need a comparator going into a max delay repeater, then dig out 3 blocks starting with the comparator, place a 2-tick delay repeater, and then connect dust together, like so. This is just a shortener. Now we need to connect dust from that repeater over here to this very first dust, and now we are done with all of the redstone. Now we're going to go back in and place our note blocks. So again, the numbers at the top of the screen are for each section, and then the number at the bottom left is for the note block that we are currently on. And we're going to start with our instrument block that is closest to the lever, and then just follow the repeaters. Whichever direction the repeaters are going is the direction that we are going to go. So the first row is 3 10s, a 6, a 10, a 13, and a 1. Now for the second row, the same way. The numbers at the top of the screen is how many times you need to poke each note block. Then the number at the bottom left will just help you stay organized if you get lost. And if you accidentally poke or lose track of how many pokes you've poked a note block, just break it. Just break it and replace it so that it starts off at 0. That is much, much easier than trying to figure out, how many times you need to poke it to get to 15 or 11 or 13. So if you mess up, just break it and replace it. And like I mentioned before, it might help you stay organized and might be easier just to take screenshots of each section. The numbers at the top of the screen that correspond to the note blocks. You should be able to tell kind of where the note blocks go based on like the direction of the repeaters or how many numbers there are per section. So rather than trying to follow along, you can use what we're doing now as a reference in case you get confused or lost. But for the most part, you should be able to just place in your note blocks and then poke them the corresponding number of times. And that might save you some time, just taking screenshots or writing down what's at the top of the screen. Like when I go to make these, right? Like I find the song that I want to make, then I look up sheet music for that song. And then I just translate the sheet music into how many pokes I need to poke each note block to reach that corresponding note. So that part's pretty easy. I just write those numbers down, and then I'm good to go. I can just place in all of the note blocks, poke them that number of times. The hard part is figuring out the delay that I need. Because repeater delay doesn't really translate to like sheet music delay, really. Especially because repeaters at a 1-tick delay are really fast, almost instantaneous. And then repeaters at a 1-tick delay is kind of slow. It's kind of weird and funky. The hardest part is just figuring out the repeater delay. Finding the notes is easy. That's just translating sheet music. And then the circuits to make certain, parts repeat and certain parts not repeat. You don't even really need those. If you just placed more note blocks, you could just bypass all of those circuits. So if you wanted to make your own, you totally could. Just copy the numbers of the notes. Now, one thing to note is that the first time you flick the lever, nothing's going to happen. Then the second time you flick the lever, it will play, but it won't be exactly correct. It's not going to repeat the correct sections that are supposed to be repeated. This first time that it plays, it will kind of like orient itself into the correct positions. You actually need 3 of those lamps to be turned on, and then 1 of the lamps will be turned off. And then after the first playthrough, where it's kind of wrong, like now it will play correctly forever and ever. Basically, the lamps just need to fix themselves to get in the correct position, which the redstone will do for you. So it should never mess up after that first time, but just know that if it sounds funky the very first time, don't panic. Everything is probably correct. Just let it play, and it should fix itself. And now you have the Super Mario theme in your Minecraft world. And next up, we're going to talk about how to move the lever. That's probably necessary since you probably don't want your lever just kind of floating above open redstone. But in general, even if you leave the lever where it's at, this will just keep playing forever and ever as long as that lever is turned off. Then you just turn that lever on, and it will finish playing through its current playthrough, but it will stop rather than just repeating itself. But to move the lever somewhere else is super easy. All we need to do is power that dust at a maximum strength. So basically, we just need a repeater that is pointed into the block above that dust. And now we just need to power this repeater from anywhere. So we can just place a lever anywhere that we want to, and just connect that lever to that repeater. So you can put the lever anywhere that you want to as long as it powers that repeater. Just no matter how it powers that repeater is totally fine. Just that repeater needs to power that dust. And with that, you have now built the Super Mario music in your Minecraft world. And if you do plan on building this, I would love to know about it. Are you building some kind of crazy Mario area with piranha plants and Koopas and chain chomps, or are you just using it as a doorbell because it's cool? So be sure to leave a comment and let me know what kind of crazy projects you got going on. And speaking of that, you can always check the video description for a link to my Discord. Join that community to share pictures of your builds, share your stories and your experiences, and maybe make some Minecraft friends. We would love to see what you got going on. But that's all we got for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. And be sure to leave a comment. If you have any questions or requests, I will do my best to help you out. Let me know what you thought about this style of video and what kind of crazy projects you have planned for the future. Thank you so much for watching, being here, and spending time with me. Always remember that you are totally awesome, and above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye.